Hey everybody, I wanted to give an update on how I'm doing the framing in the van. I'll probably actually do this in multiple parts because there's some unique things that I did to get the headliner lined up and then as well as the back piece of the van. So I'll probably do a separate video just on those. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about how I'm actually securing everything. So I'm using these things called riv nuts, and basically what they are is a metal piece that basically goes into a hole in the side of the van. There's holes all over the van that are there by the factory. They go into the van or into the hole, and then I use this rib nut tool. This is the Astro 1450 for those that care. Basically, this screws on, the rib nut screws on. So they go on like that, and then that goes into the hole, and then you actually crimp it. And it basically crushes and creates a hole that allows you to put in a 1/4 inch screw or machine screw. The main reason I'm using those is because it creates just a really incredibly solid connection to all of the parts. And for me, vibrations with the van, things like that, as you're driving over time, that's going to add up. So I really wanted to make sure that it was really solid. A lot of people just use self-tapping screws. It probably works just fine. I just wanted to be more secure, or at least for me, the riv nuts seem more secure, so that was my choice to do it that way. It does create a little bit of a headache trying to line everything up, but it works really, really well once things are installed. So in terms of actually putting up the pieces, I made a couple choices. For me, there were a couple things that I wanted to choose. One is I want to have cabinets up on the top across this whole side. And I wanted to have something really, really secure to have those cabinets in, again, from a safety standpoint. So that was one consideration. The second consideration was a lot of people leave this pillar exposed in their van at the very end when they do all their finish work. I didn't actually want to do that. I wanted to actually cover that. We're going to be using pine boards, probably shiplap pine boards to actually cover the entire side. We'll use tongue and groove on the ceiling, probably cedar. But as a result of wanting to cover this, I need to be able to get out above it. And basically, what I did is on this particular piece here, I used actually 3/4 inch plywood. I use 1/2 inch pretty much everywhere else, like on the ceiling and things like that. And I'll explain that in a second. But I use 3/4 inch on this right here. And the reason why is because that gives me a solid piece to actually put a board against. I can go straight over this. It goes right over it, and it's flush all the way. So I'll be able to go straight down and up all the way. That should work out really, really well for me. Up on the top, I used actually 2x6s, and the reason I did that is because, again, the way things bump out and the way things are, the way they line up, can make it really difficult. So what I wanted was, again, that ability to have it go straight across and have it flush. On the ceiling, I actually used 1/2 inch, and the reason why is because 1/2 inch is actually fairly flexible, and the top of the van is actually curved. So when I put the 1/2 inch in, I can actually snug it right up using those rib nuts to actually get and follow that curve. And because I have it all lined up, when the 1/2 inch or when the cedar siding or the cedar ceiling comes in, it'll line up all the way to the edge, and it should be able to match right up against it. Again, right here. And that's why I use that 2x material, is to extend myself out beyond all of the bumps and ribs that are along the van here on the side. I did the same thing up on this side over here as well. So that worked out really, really well. As far as connecting these inner pieces right here, that was mainly just for insulation as well as connecting to the cabinets. I actually used pocket screws to connect everything up. It's super solid in between. I was a little nervous about it actually grabbing in on the angle, but it actually worked out really well. So all of the pieces that are in here are all put in with pocket screws. The other thing I did is when I installed everything, I basically made all the cuts. I installed everything temporarily with bare wood, and then I went through and I marked, and you'll see all the numbers and everything like that that I have on here. And the reason why was because I pulled it all down, and then I painted everything, because again, anything that touches the metal, I wanted to make sure that I have mold and mildew resistant paint on it. So I pulled them all out, painted everything, and actually, for what it's worth, I just used a magic marker to mark these, and they kind of disappeared when you first initially paint, but they show up right after. This is obviously, I'll get covered up with siding and trim, so you'll never see that. But it made it a lot easier to put it back in, so I didn't make mistakes on that. So in essence, that's how I did at least the top half. I've basically done the ceiling and down to about here. The next step for me is to actually start working my way down, building out for the beds, for our bunk beds, and actually trimming out the windows, or at least building something so that I can trim out the windows, which I honestly haven't totally figured out yet. This framing has been a bit of a head scratcher, trying to figure out how to do it. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to do it. I've seen a lot of ways to do it. Mine is a bit of a hybrid approach from a bunch of different ways that people have done it in the past. So hopefully it will all work out, and that's about it on these, on the sides and the ceiling. And like I said, I'll do a second video on how I did the front up by the headliner and then on the back piece back here.